If we're looking at January to December, any given calendar year as a whole, which MMA fighter in history managed to pack in the most impressive set of victories into that 12-month span? We're not looking for fighters like Kevin Holland or Neil Magny, who went 5-0 against mid-tier opposition. No, this one is about truly elite victories. So guys like Cain, Velasquez or Khabib Nurmagomedov, who generally fought once or maybe twice a year, they will of course suffer under this criteria. But with that out of the way, let's just get into it. Run through the 10 candidates, narrow it down to a top 3, and then eventually decide which fighter had the greatest year in MMA history. Anderson Silva, 2006. To kick things off, we have an absolutely iconic run of knockouts from the great Anderson Silva. The year didn't exactly kick off well for him either, when a disqualification saw him lose to Yushin Okami, although he would later avenge this defeat in the UFC. But to score that legendary reverse elbow on Tony Strickland, debut in the UFC with possibly the greatest opening performance that any fighter has had for their first walk to the octagon, that destruction of Chris Lieben, who was on a 5-fight win streak at the time, and then to follow it all up by totally eviscerating the highly underrated Rich Franklin with a Muay Thai plum clinch masterclass. Yeah, this is an early contender, folks. Shogun Hua, 2005. Shogun Hua's legend was already set in stone by the time he landed in the UFC, and his performance under the Pride banner in 2005 had a lot to do with it. One victory over Hiromitsu Kanehara led to a 4-fight run in the promotion's middleweight Grand Prix, which was their 205-pound division. And man, this was one of the greatest single-year showcases imaginable. He TKO'd Quinton Rampage Jackson, beat Little Nog, and then in the one-night tournament finale, he finished both Alistair Overeem and Ricardo Arona back-to-back. A wild achievement from Shogun. Vitor Belfort, 2013. If you don't like PEDs, look away now. Because 2013 Vitor Belfort was so jacked through unnatural means that he even got his own one-off mythical nickname. TRT Vitor might have just been the most dangerous man in mixed martial arts, or at least before he ran out of cardio he was. 3 head kicks, each just as brutal as the last, saw Vitor steamroll his way to a perfect 3-0 record in 2013. That picture-perfect shot against Dan Henderson, the spinning back kick from hell against Luke Rockhold, and of course the eye-destroying kick that left Michael Bisping with a real problem on his hands. Kamaru Usman, 2021. It takes a lot to totally change a fanbase's opinion of you, and to do it in just 1 year, that's pretty damn impressive. Kamaru Usman had indeed won some good faith with his detractors after his thrilling first clash with Colby Covington, but when he followed it up with back-to-back knockouts of Gilbert Burns and in particular Jorge Masvidal, the fans were quick to acknowledge that this man was very clearly evolving into something much more appealing. Add in a second, more tightly contested victory over Covington, and you have one hell of a year by any standard. Jon Jones, 2011. Another major breakout for a future GOAT candidate comes in next, in the form of Jon Jones's 4-0 run in 2011, a spell that saw him beat his fellow top prospect Ryan Bader with little to no issue, totally destroy the legendary Shogun Hua to become the youngest champion in UFC history, and then rack up a pair of early title defenses against divisional icons in Quinton Rampage Jackson and Lyoto Machida. The Jon Jones era began with a very definitive set of statements, and it really set the table for what was about to follow. On a quick side note, if you're enjoying this content and want to stay up to date with all of our weekly uploads, subscribe now before liking the video and commenting to show your support. George St-Pierre, 2006. Next up we go to one of the shorter activity logs, but I mean, how could you leave GSP's victory over BJ Penn and his destruction of Matt Hughes off this list? Those are two absolutely iconic fighters, and his highly competitive clash with Penn, as well as his coming-of-age domination of Hughes in their rematch to finally earn UFC gold, was one hell of a foreshadowing moment for this future Hall of Famer and undeniable GOAT candidate. Quinton Rampage Jackson, 2007. Quinton Rampage Jackson loomed over the UFC's 205-pound division from his own position as a major attraction within Pride back in the 2000s. And when he beat a prime Chuck Liddell in Japan, anticipation was huge for their eventual rematch. So when Rampage came to the US and managed to go 3-0 in his debut year within the UFC, including victories over Liddell and Dan Henderson to win and defend the belt, it was clear that a new star had been born for the US market, a huge display from one of the division's finest. Stipe Miocic, 2016. Stipe Miocic is the greatest UFC heavyweight we've ever seen, and within all of the excellent work he did dispatching some of the division's most renowned legends, his 2016 run was truly exceptional. His early KO of Andrei Arlovski, shocking the world by countering a very eager Fabrizio Verdum with such precision to win the belt, and then weathering the storm against a still very viable contender in Alistair Overeem, these wins have all aged very well, and during this year, Stipe managed to put in one hell of a shift. Fedor Emelianenko 2004. Fedor is another top contender in this list, I feel, with his 2004 run featuring several huge victories for his legacy. The former UFC champion Mark Coleman, another in Kevin Randleman, who nearly broke Fedor's neck in that legendary slam that the last emperor somehow recovered from with little issue, but the true gem in this year was his victory over Big Nog, Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira, who after their first unfortunate no contest, had his title as the greatest heavyweight on the planet taken from him in emphatic fashion. Daniel Cormier 2018. Daniel Cormier was truly at his lowest point when he lost by way of TKO to Jon Jones in their iconic second fight at UFC 214. Some expected that he would truly never be the same after a loss like that, even though the result was officially overturned to a no contest, and he did get his old championship belt back. So when DC went out there in 2018 and scored 3 finishes in his 3 fights, defending his light heavyweight crown in dominant fashion against Volkan Oezdemir, KOing the heavyweight GOAT Stipe Miocic in the first round to become a double champion, and then defending that heavyweight belt against Derek Lewis. Yeah, that's an amazing run. So before we decide, here are a few honorable mentions. BJ Penn in 2004, Israel Adesanya in 2019, Royce Gracie in 1994, Conor McGregor in 2015, Randy Couture in 2003, and Amanda Nunes in 2016. So who gets the final vote? Well, if I missed any particular fighter's year, do let us know in the comments below. This was a difficult video to research, as I did have to rely on memory, general knowledge, and simply checking the resumes of famous fighters. In my mind, the top 3 best years on offer here belong to the following fighters. In the 3rd spot, Shogun Hua for his performance in that middleweight Grand Prix. The names he beat and the circumstances under which he did it. You really should watch this year play out in full if you haven't already. In the runner-up spot, Fedor Emelianenko for his breakout under the Pride banner and how he stole Big Nog's unbeatable aura and just totally made it his own. I just think he made a statement to the entire sport in this year, and that was a truly all-time great accomplishment. And for the winner, I think Jon Jones's 4-0 year in 2011 is truly the stuff of legend. Not only was it a great active year for a title contender as young as he was, but the history he made by winning the belt, the opponents he beat, the fashion he beat them in, and the fact that he earned UFC gold as the youngest fighter to ever do it, a record he holds to this day, and then he still went on to defend that belt against 2 former champions of the division in that very same year. Yeah, Jon Jones takes this one home. Anyway, that'll just about do it for this video. So what did you make of our picks? And if you had to make a top 3 of your own, who would get in there? Do let us know in the comments section below before subscribing to the channel so you don't miss a single upload. Thank you for watching.